Steph draws aside a set of clothes set neatly on hangers, sighing as she pulls with the weight of her body to search for the clothes that have found their way to the forgotten liminal space within her wardrobe. It is the spot, Steph tells me, where unresolved or ambivalent garments live. Her hand disappears between the clothes, re-emerging after a short time with a jumper. The material fibres are long and feathery. As Steph draws it out to the light, the fibres dance and the fabric shines. Holding the jumper by the shoulders, Steph says the jumper is really old, but really comfy. It shows some signs of wear, bald patches from bodily friction, and some pulling around the neckline, but it does not look old. The object just mentioned is just one of the ethnographic encounters that inform this paper and provides an entree into the accumulation, abandonment, and lingering of polyester clothes. Thanks for tuning into this video. I'm Elise. In this paper, Chris and I seek to follow polyester clothes, geographically and temporally, beyond spaces of production to their everyday use, storage, divestment, reuse, and recirculation. Among the pertinent questions are: what are the material geographies of polyester? How is this complicated by broader questions of the cultural and political economy of clothing waste? How is polyester handled through practices? And how do wearers become attuned to the feel of polyester? There is a lot of waste in clothes. The speeding up of production, countless trends, multi-seasonal cycles, and increasingly short stays in wardrobes all amplify clothing waste. It's said that the average person in the affluent global north consumes about 27 kilos and then discards 23 kilos of clothing per year. And across its production, distribution, and consumption, clothing contributes to a range of ecological problems such as excess water use and groundwater, soil, and air pollution. Up to 2/3 of clothing made, used, and discarded globally features human-made materials like polyester, which draw on finite resources. The annual production of polyester now exceeds 23 billion tonnes, making it the most produced textile globally. The prevalence of polyester, a plastic derivative, opens up questions of origin, politics, and pollution. It also opens up questions about what happens to polyester in and out of use, and what attention to the material relations of clothes can reveal about the complex embodied engagements between consumers and polyester, from attachment to disgust, pleasure to deception. These sensorial, emotional, and evaluative engagements with polyester, we argue, are key to unlocking its material politics and trouble responses to clothing waste. Polyester sits alongside other plastics that are emblematic of economies of abundance and ecological destruction. But despite its ubiquity, the plasticity inherent in polyester clothes and the everyday bodily relations with it have thus far evaded scrutiny. In this paper, Chris and I follow polyester and its visceral relations beyond spaces of production into everyday use, storage, and divestment. We argue that polyester's materiality, its very plasticity, unleashes an unsettling set of contradictory relations among clothes wearers. So both mundane and malignant, polyester's feel and slow decay means that it seldom slips from the category of surplus to excess in clear ways. Like other plastics, polyester's durability promotes accumulation across various material and temporal scales. The petroleum footings and uniform chemical structures create a resilience that evades biodegradation. We are starting to know more about the microscopic impacts of polyester through the process of laundering. So in the case of polyester, even when repeatedly used, much loved and cared for, and these are all practices that advocates of sustainable fashion endorse, clothes that are made from polyester become a significant and harmful source of waste. Further problems arise from polyester in reuse. The garment and textile quality of polyester clothes are often less capable of repurposing, and they also linger longer in wardrobes and circuits of secondhand clothing because of their longer decay time. And so they accumulate as unused and as unwanted without significant signs of wear. These clothes now dominate charity stores and transnational secondhand clothing trades. And it's the material recalcitrance of polyester that forces us to acknowledge the ways the fibre persists long after the clothes use has exhausted. Once discarded, polyester moves within reuse, recycling, and resource reclamation economies. Although recyclable, there are still significant challenges to recycling polyester textiles. And a lot of this is down to the diversity of polyester. Textile recycling technologies are currently not advanced enough to handle materials en masse. Criticisms have also been levelled at reuse and recycling initiatives from fast fashion companies like H&M's Conscious campaign. The critiques here are that all the clothes collected by these companies will instead sit hoarded within factories instead of being recycled. Instances of recycling polyester garments and plastic into new fashion items divert human-made materials from landfill, such as Patagonia's fleeces and wetsuits that are made from partially recycled plastic bottle content, as we're seeing here. The subsequent laundering and care of recycled polyester garments continue to leach microplastics. So unlike plastic bags or bottled water, where the plasticity is up front and frequently a site of political contestation, the plasticity of polyester fabrics is rarely acknowledged. Whether a sole object woven together from tiny filaments or blended with natural fibres, polyesters appear other than the petroleum-based product in the same family as plastic bags or takeaway containers. Polyester is not subject to the same kinds of problematizing discourses or campaigns as, for instance, plastic bags. One reason for this is that much of the commentary on the political, economic, and the environmental problems of clothing assumes their stability, and the unit of analysis here is garments as finished and coherent objects. Instead, in this paper, Chris and I focus on polyester as an agentic component of material by thinking of clothes as always in process, rather than singular, stable, or static things. This approach considers clothes as collections of materials that are held together provisionally and always in flux. Clothes are never stable, finished commodities, but rather assembled items, assortments of fabrics, threads, buttons, and zippers in a temporary coherence, awaiting further use and adaptation. So what drives polyester clothing as a lingering form of waste is what happens to it in and out of use, what meanings are ascribed to it, and how these change when it starts to deteriorate, malfunction, or wear. Central here is polyester's materiality, its utility, its laundering, its relationship to cultural norms, its lingering in domestic lives and wardrobes, and its discarding. And all of this is influenced by polyester's interactions with human skin and how it feels. This is what influences how we buy, use, and dispose of polyester. So we followed polyester in and out of wardrobes of 23 young adults from Sydney, Australia, where we were not only attentive to the materiality of polyester fabrics, but how haptic and emotional meanings for synthetics vary, with consequences for waste and reuse. Our focus on the more embodied material geographies of polyester offers a kind of refusal of viewing polyester as if it exists in isolation to sensorial, emotional, and evaluative engagements. This alters how the problems and challenges posed by polyester fabrics and clothes might be viewed. So they become not just questions of materials and their forms, but of the ways that people relate to materials as an embodied part of everyday routine. So to help us think through this, here we offer a number of empirical examples. The first set of examples is focused around touch. The second group is focused around polyester clothes that have lost their value, but still linger due to their plastic durability. There were mixed perceptions about what polyester should feel like. One set of embodied reactions encompassed detachment and denial. So Lucy, for example, rejected that polyester was even part of her wardrobe. Tahira polyester clothes carries little in the way of provenance or value. So while the origins of polyester may be concealed, its mimicking properties can manifest a type of material ambivalence. Aesthetics was not the only element important in clothes, so was touch. Participants spent time getting to know and locate comfort through clothes, even if their knowledge of fabrics was limited. More often, polyester was rejected when its plasticity was felt, and it was scorned for not being breathable. This was particularly the case with secondhand clothes made from polyester, and that's seen quite obviously here in Sammy's quote on the screen. Polyester also evoked other bodily senses and emotions once a garment had been worn and the body has left its mark on it. So cultural norms relating to sweat and affective relations of disgust combined here with the lurking co-presence and capacities of polyester. But there were others who actively sought out polyester. A self-described environmentalist, Philippe looked for quality in clothes in the form of durability. crediting a uni assignment to his awareness of the environmental impacts of cotton, Philippe felt that the addition of polyester to a natural fibre provided strength and robustness, which in the long term he hoped would help him minimise the number of new t-shirts he would need to purchase, and therefore limiting his consumption of environmentally damaging cotton. Then there were polyesters that were hidden by the context of their use. Unless reading labels on the garment, modern forms of polyester draw almost no attention to themselves. Equally, the materialities of polyester can be masked by its trademark or brand name. Polar fleece conjures images of wool. Lycra is now so normalised as a high-performance fibre for sports and athletic wear that its inorganic origins barely resonate. And accompanying Lycra in that category are a host of other additional high-performance textiles, elastin, microlux, suplex, whose names both evoke high-tech science and a degree of bodily comfort, like seen in Andrew's quote here. Its plasticity is essential to its success, but has become essentially invisible. These clothes pose real issues when thinking about cycles of divestment and waste. It's likely that polyester workwear or sportswear will not have a second phase of consumption beyond the original user. Placed culturally in the same realm as undergarments, cultural taboos of sweat, dirt, and disgust linger in sports garments, rendering them as unappealing for reuse or upcycle. There are unresolved questions about how clothes made from polyester become wasted beyond use and into their afterlife. Notwithstanding their intended durability, polyester does in fact wear and decay, which shape ongoing relations of care, use, and ridding. There may be small signs as surfaces become thinner or rougher. A wearer might notice things like pilling. This new surface is idiosyncratic. It is produced by the presence of the wearer's body, the push of the fabric, the friction between mobile body parts. It is also impacted by other contact surfaces, backpacks rubbing, sitting against a chair, laundering through washing machines and dryers. Worn surfaces often render polyester garments beyond further use, marking the point of divestment, even though the overall integrity of the fabric and the item survives. And anyone familiar with secondhand clothing will recognise this, and it's the reason why charity stores are clogged with polyester that's still useful without stains, tears or holes, but it's unlikely to ever be repurchased or repurposed because they are peeled or unevenly degraded, and in ways that, unlike organic fibres, add no obvious worn-in aesthetic to the garment itself. So polyester lingers on in people's homes and wardrobes. Among my participants, polyester or polyester blend clothing was the most common type of clothing to accumulate. Amongst Anne's pile, for instance, there were all kinds of polyester garments: singlets, shirts, blouses and skirts, still in good condition but no longer suitable for wear. But such things are not so easily removed. And then there was some anxiety about how best to get rid of items that were deemed to be too worn for reuse but not completely worn out. So some polyester things lingered out of confusion, like we see here from Laura. Laura was unsure about what to do with this jacket. But underpinning this was a sense of stewardship for the clothes. Laura held on to the jacket in her wardrobe unused rather than risk it going to waste. Polyester clothes lingered and often ended up being pushed to the back of the cupboard and forgotten about. Because of its ongoing integrity, divesting and passing on unwanted polyester garments was fraught. Paying attention to the material qualities of clothes that are ridded or not ridded reveals the capacity of polyester to disrupt and interfere with the temporal and haptic logic of ridding. Following polyester, assembled into clothes in process from shops to bodies, wardrobes and beyond, revealed a complex picture of haptic relations, visceral reactions, of lingering presences, deceptions, and invisible unleashings. And drawn into this story are accompanying threads and concerns: ever-increasing production and consumption, industrial design and branding, cultural norms of sweat and smell, affective relations of disgust, and the nanoscale malignancies of errant microfibers. There's also a whole other set of human and non-human entities that together shape the biographies of less loved but long-lasting polyester clothes. In the case of polyester, the vital materialism of plastic is arranged and reconfigured in different and altogether uneasy and contradictory configurations. But these are more than either a cultural or a structural problem. And we argue that a key problem with treating waste as culturally circumscribed is that it allows us to avoid the materiality of things and their relations. So here I want to echo Waite and Phillips, who say that the problems and challenges posed by waste, and in this case polyester waste, are embedded in and enacted through practical relations among people and the material world. Rather, the force and matter of things participate in their creating, recreating, placement, and ridding. Waste is ever slippery and unstable. This is exemplified, we believe, in polyesters as materials that perform and endure, that feel great and feel awful, that deceive and linger, all without easy resolution. Thank you.